This video is brought to you by Skillshare. So after a lot of comparing on my end, comparing both these devices in very specific, tasks, I wanted to do a more general overview comparing the MacBook Pro 13-inch baseline specifically versus the iPad Pro 11 and 12.9-inch, more generally going over the 5 aspects, design, display, battery life, camera, and performance. If you want more in-depth tests, I recommend you watch my other videos in order to help you decide which device is really right for you. But yeah, once again, we're doing more of a general comparison in this video. But before we continue, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like on this video, comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or opinions, as the algorithm likes that and will help push my videos to more people. So without further ado, let's jump into this product showdown. So beginning with design, as you can see here, I'm shooting at a much wider angle here. I'm shooting at 14mm versus 25, which I normally do to accommodate both of these devices. I thought that was worth addressing for 2 seconds. But anyway, both of these devices are made out of very similar materials. They're made by the same company, anodized aluminum, glass. Metal and glass is the theme here, except with the MacBook, of course, you get plastic with the keyboard. I don't know what else to be made out of. But yeah, both of these devices are very high quality. There's really no comparison there. They're both of the same quality standard, I would say. I'm going to focus on, however, differences in form factor and other aspects of the design here. Firstly, let's talk speakers. Both of these devices have great speaker systems, stereo at that. However, the iPad Pro, in my experience, does have a better speaker setup. It has 4 drivers versus the 2 found in the MacBook Pro and offers a louder, clearer sound. So it's going to be better for music listening and media consumption. But these speakers are great too, very loud, very crisp, much better than the previous generation. You also have difference in, input. Obviously, with the MacBook Pro, you have a massive touchpad or trackpad right here. It's almost as big as my hand. And then you have the Apple Pencil and your finger with the iPad Pro. And as we know with the iPad Pro, you can take your pencil and attach it to the side, which is very convenient. And it also charges your pencil too. Obviously, this is a touchscreen device. This is a non-touchscreen device. That is something you're going to have to think about. If you prefer the iPadOS experience with, touch and the Apple Pencil versus the macOS experience, which is centered around the traditional, trackpad cursor, click and drag, clicking, whatever you want to call it. In terms of biometrics, we have Touch ID with the MacBook Pro and Face ID with the iPad Pro. Basically the same amount of security. Both are great for Apple Pay and just getting into your device. And I would say in terms of convenience, they're about the same, although you do get an emoji and other, Face ID aspects with the Face ID sensors here, whereas this is just a touch sensor that you can unlock stuff with. This touch sensor also functions as a power button, which is part of the touch bar here, which is obviously a feature that is unique to the MacBook Pro. I wouldn't say it's absolutely comparable to the iPad because this is an entire touchscreen, but it is a unique feature nonetheless. You have control over, brightness and all your regular function keys. You got a Siri button. You have particular controls for apps. So like in Safari here, I can tap to enter a website. I can have, different choices here. I can tap the Apple website. If I create a new tab, it'll show me my tab views here. So I can switch between tabs. So just stuff like that. You have specialized functions with the touch bar once again. And yeah, it's not the most groundbreaking thing, but it is a cool feature nonetheless. And more on form factor. Obviously, this is a tablet. You can attach a keyboard. You don't have to have a keyboard. It's more portable. You can just sit down on the couch and watch videos and just chill with it. This is a laptop. You're going to want it, on your lap, hence the name laptop. You also have a built-in keyboard, which although it's flat and, sometimes, in the past has been prone to dust or collecting dust and having some complications, but that's with previous generations, though I will say. It is a pretty nice tactile experience. I wouldn't say it's the best keyboard experience, but it is definitely a good one. I enjoy typing things with this. And you have to kind of take into account, what kind of work are you doing? Are you just doing photo editing and drawing? Then maybe the iPad Pro is going to be the device because you have the Apple Pencil and you have a touch screen and you don't need a keyboard all the time. However, if you're doing a bunch of typing and emailing and writing, you might want to have a device with a built-in keyboard and the ability to just, sit down, have it on your lap comfortably, I would say you can do very similar things with the iPad Pro with keyboard cases. Although I haven't demoed really any keyboard case with my iPad Pro, I used iPads throughout high school. I had several keyboard cases, and I just found that a laptop is just a more comfortable experience if you're going to be, writing or typing a lot on the go. The keyboard for an iPad is more of a convenience thing, it's there if you need it, and if you don't want it, I just suggest not having it attached to your iPad at all. So that is something to keep in mind. That's just my opinion. In terms of portability, both of these devices are excellent. This thing just folds up really nicely. It's a very minimal amount of weight. This device too, whether it's the 11 or the 12.9, is very, very slim, so it can just fit into your bag absolutely no problem. So portability really isn't an issue, but obviously the iPad is going to be more portable because of its, inherent iPad form factor. And the last thing I want to talk about is connectivity. You have 2 to 4 Thunderbolt ports with the MacBook Pro, 2 here with the baseline, and you have a single USB Type-C port with the iPad Pro. Obviously it's less powerful, it's not Thunderbolt. However, you can drive a display, you can connect, a dongle, you can connect drives and other accessories. But with this, you have more connectivity, more power, more bandwidth. However, it's the same port, so you're not really missing out in terms of, convenience with either of these devices. You're gonna have to get adapters, and that's kind of the annoying part, but still, these ports are very, very capable. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, this device, the MacBook Pro, has a headphone jack. So if that is of utmost importance to you, if you're that one person who needs to have wired headphones, then I guess this is the device you're gonna wanna buy. Moving on to display here. Surprisingly, these two devices have very similar display setups. Both are LED, both have really great contrast, both have True Tone, both have a similar pixel density, and I really enjoy using both. They're great for media consumption, art, whether you're doing photo editing, video editing, etc. And the only major difference is the refresh rate. Obviously, with a Mac, you have a traditional 60 Hz display with the UI. However, with iPadOS, with the iPad Pro, you have a 120 Hz display, which makes for a very, very buttery experience. I will say, I recommend you go to the store, you use these both so you can see what I mean, because I can't really quantify or show you the difference on video, but I'll tell you, 120 Hz, when you use it, it's really hard to go back to anything else. I wouldn't say it ruins every display for me, like I said in the past. It's really nice to have, but I can still tolerate my Mac, and I can still tolerate my iPhone and other devices that I have that are not quite, at the same refresh rate. However, it is a very nice experience, and if you're somebody who wants that, if you fall in love with the ProMotion, then iPad Pro might be the device you should think about picking up. But yeah, both of these displays, whether you go with the 11-inch or the 12.9-inch and the 13-inch display on the MacBook Pro, are bright, beautiful, color accurate, and are some of the best in the industry. Moving on to battery life here, I don't have exact numbers for you, but what I can tell you is when you're doing, everyday stuff like word processing, video watching, just regular school-oriented tasks that aren't super taxing, you're gonna get similar battery life with both these devices. They're gonna last all day. I would say these devices may fall a little bit under or above what Apple has estimated, so they're not too far off like, companies are with fuel economy. But when it comes to more taxing things like video editing and gaming, you're gonna want to plug in your MacBook Pro because it's going to drain a lot quicker. And I think that's because the processors within a Mac are less efficient than the processors found in an iPad, the A12 and the Core i5. While they are similar in performance, which we'll talk about, obviously the efficiency is going to be better with an A12. It's not as power hungry and it doesn't heat up as much. So once again, if you're playing Minecraft, if you're editing 4K video, doing whatever you're doing with the MacBook Pro, you're going to want to plug into power. However, with the iPad Pro, it's going to drain faster, but not quite at the same rate as the Mac, as we've discussed. To briefly talk about camera for a minute here, if you're going to want to take pictures and videos, obviously the iPad Pro is the way to go. You got a front-facing camera which has 7 megapixels. You have a back-facing camera with 12 megapixels. It can shoot 4K. It has a flash. By all means, if you want to be that person at the birthday party who's taking pictures of people with the iPad, go right ahead. But I will say, it is nice to have the cameras on the iPad Pro for, taking pictures of documents and mundane things. You can't really do that with the MacBook Pro with the front-facing webcam. With iPad Pro, you have more versatility. So yeah, if you're somebody who is taking pictures all the time, whether it's of your kids or documents or whatever you do, iPad Pro is going to be the device for you. And last but certainly not least, let's talk performance and more so usage case with both these devices here. What's really cool is that the iPad Pro with the A12 scores higher in Geekbench than the MacBook Pro 13-inch, the baseline one from 2019 with the Core i5. You get about 5,000 single core here, 18,000 multi-core here, whereas with the MacBook Pro you get 4,500 single core, 16,500 multi-core. So I guess that could roughly translate to better performance in gaming and video editing and higher end tasks. However, obviously these devices have different, operating systems with different applications available right now. But the good thing is that although Pro apps are more available here right now, Pro apps are coming to iPad Pro, specifically Photoshop, hopefully Premiere, hopefully one day Apple will implement Final Cut Pro here. That is what I'm praying for. So yeah, in terms of application support right now, the MacBook Pro, if you're doing, creative tasks and more pro-oriented tasks, I would say the MacBook Pro might be the better option, but just anticipate that more software is coming to the iPad Pro. And there's already a great selection. You have apps like LumaFusion and Lightroom and like Affinity Photo and other apps, which make this device more comparable to a MacBook Pro. And I've made several videos on usage case. I have a school-oriented one, a video editing-oriented one, and a photo editing-oriented one. I will leave links to those videos in the video description, and I really recommend you watch them because they go in depth, so you really know which device is right for you. However, I'll give my summaries and kind of like brief explanations here in this video. In regard to just everyday tasks, both of these devices can work. If you're more of a typing person, you want to type all the time, typing is your life, MacBook Pro is the way to go. If you're doing some moderate typing, then either of these devices could work, especially with the keyboard case here. If you're doing drawing, obviously you're going to want to get the iPad Pro because of the Apple Pencil. If you're doing video editing, at the current moment, I think the MacBook Pro is a better experience. Final Cut Pro is optimized very, very well for it, and I use this program every day to edit my YouTube videos. However, LumaFusion is an excellent experience and really does take advantage of the iPad Pro's power and is a very capable and professional application. So if you prefer the iPad Pro form factor, then you can definitely do some, high-end video editing with this device. However, I do think the MacBook Pro is the more professional option as of this moment. In terms of photo editing, I actually prefer the iPad Pro. I use the iPad Pro all the time to edit my thumbnails with Lightroom, and with the full version of Photoshop coming, I'm very excited to make use of it, especially with the Apple Pencil when it comes to, cutting out images and, using vector tools and everything. iPad Pro is my favorite in that regard. So at the end of the day, both these devices are extremely capable and powerful. Obviously, if you're somebody who needs a keyboard for everything you're typing and you prefer the macOS operating system and you're doing, more video editing, I would say go with the MacBook Pro. However, if you don't need a keyboard all the time, if you like the iPadOS experience, if you're an artist, you're drawing, you're photo editing, whatever, I would say go with the iPad Pro. You can definitely make it work. And some, workflows benefit from a touchscreen and the Apple Pencil, so the more power to you. Once again, this video has been sponsored by Skillshare, a service that provides a vast library of video-based courses ranging from topics like cooking sushi to learning YouTube SEO. I gotta tell you, when I was first learning the basics of filmmaking, photography, video editing, all by myself, just me, my camera, and the internet, it would have been great to have known about this site, as there are hundreds of multi-video courses on these various subjects. So if you're someone who just, say, got a new device, a camera, an instrument, a new computer you have no idea how to operate, consider Skillshare and find the perfect tutorials to suit your needs. Unlike a YouTube video or playlist, you get an overview of whichever course you happen to click on, an ability rating, and a very easy to navigate interface when choosing a video from a series. If you're interested, I will leave a link in the video description, as you can get your first 2 months free if you sign up right now. And that about wraps things up. I hope this video helped you out. Once again, I really appreciate it if you leave a like on this video, comment if you have any questions or suggestions, and subscribe for more content like this. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.